You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
That's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to episode 102 of Making Tracks, brought to you live from my living room. And sat next to me for the first time in, 18 months or so, is Mr. Mark Newbold. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Hello, pal. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
How's things? Been busy?
Yeah, very busy. Well fed after last night. Thank you very much.
That's all right. Yeah. For those who don't know, I hosted a nice barbecue and had lots of friends and people around from Rebel Legion. And Mark and Ruth came down, and we had. Luckily, a dry barbecue as well, which is lucky considering the weather we've had.
Very dry for me because I don't drink alcohol at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know what, actually? There was very few people who were drinking last night. Everybody was like on the soft drinks, so I was quite surprised.
You're really hammered. You had a great big bucket full of pop and beer, and you're set for the next month.
Exactly. Yeah. So, how's things with you, dude? What have you been up to? You've been busy.
Yeah, always busy. Always busy. Yesterday, as we speak, was Echo Live down in Redditch.
Yeah.
Well, up to Redditch for you, down for me. Which was fantastic. It was really good to be in a room with lots of other collectors and fans. Saw loads of faces of people that I knew. So hello, everyone, if you're listening to this. It was great. It was just, I think I said to a couple of people before when I did Doncaster Unleashed, I think if it was just the regular run of conventions, I'd have gone to Doncaster and gone, that was a decent trip. I'm glad I went to that. I got some good content. It was good to go and see faces and people that I knew. But I wouldn't have thought, wow, this is awesome, because we hadn't done anything for so long.
Yeah.
And then to do Echo, which is a proper collector's event, to see all that stuff, there wasn't that much I'd not seen before, a few bits. But it was just so cool. I went with Carl from Desert Planet Discs.
Nice, yeah.
Which was nice to catch up. So we had breakfast in the morning and a good run round. No, it was really, really cool.
Wicked.
Really good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that I felt as well when I started doing events, is that the last 18 months of not being able to do anything does make you appreciate stuff a lot more than I think, you like you said, you would probably take Doncaster Unleashed as a decent kind of small convention, but it wouldn't be super memorable as such. But yeah, it's quite nice. I think it's quite, the time we've had off away from things is given us a good chance to kind of like take stock and reflect a little bit, which is nice.
And I think last night when we were all talking at the barbecue, I think that came across. Everyone's ready to get out trooping, ready to get out at shows again and start to do stuff, and I think we'll all probably appreciate it a bit more.
Exactly, yeah. So was it busy yesterday?
Oh, yeah, it really was. I mean, they had an early bird, so I got up really early. I was up sort of 6ish, got there for 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Me and Carl picked up our passes, went and got some breakfast, got in for 9:15. Big queue. There's Echo put videos up of the queue. You'll see how many people. And that was just the early bird queue.
Oh, wow.
So everybody else came in at 10, and it was where Next, if you know the Kingfisher Centre in Redditch, anyone, it's where Next used to be. So it was a great big area, and like always with Echo, you think you've got to the end of it, and then there's another corridor. It's like, oh, there's more. You kept going through and finding more stuff, but it was very busy. But there's some cracking stuff there.
Oh, really? Such as?
Well, I mentioned on the episode a couple of weeks ago I got the Japanese Laserdisc of Battle for Endor.
Yeah.
So yesterday I managed to find 2 rental versions of Battle for Endor. One with the classic cover that we all know with the guy in the middle that we don't know who he is because he's not even in the film.
Yeah.
And then the other one with the Drew Struzan cover of Noah on the cover. So both rental cut versions.
Wicked.
Got one for 15 quid, one for a £5.
Oh, nice.
Really nice. So that was a big find. I managed to get a copy of the old read-along adventure, read-along book, Star Wars ABC.
Yes.
But it was the American version.
Oh, wicked.
all packed in the proper packaging with the cassette.
Lovely.
So that was a great find. And just lots of little bits. I found an art. I don't even know who made it, what it's about. The head comes off, so I think it's like a little jar thing that you can put things in. But that's just gone on my little R2 Focus. I got the Hot Wheels Land Speeder.
Cool.
which is available all round, but I'd not seen it, so I grabbed that. I got an animation cell of Tebow from the Ewoks cartoon, which was nice, which was again a great find. Just lots of little bits and bobs. It was a nice day. I've got them all already up in the collection, but it was a good day.
Awesome.
Anything new for you?
I arrived back, and my version of Kevin Scott's Rising Storm from Goldberg Books.
The green
kind of edging, and it has been signed by the great man himself, so that's arrived. But apart from that, because I've got my birthday and just had Karen's birthday, I haven't brought too much, but I did get yesterday from my good friend Phil Parker. He got me the Cad Bane and Todo 360 convention exclusive black suits we got for my birthday, so very appreciative of that. And Greg and Susie, they got me a little Boba Fett tiki kind of mug. Yeah. So that's now on the Boba Fett focus shelf. So a few bits and bobs coming in, so it's been great. So
good.
So right, what shall we start with?
I think we should start with sad news, obviously. Jonathan Rinsler passed away on the 28th of July. It was announced a couple of days later on StarWars.com and other places. George Lucas made a little tribute, as did some of his colleagues like Lynn Hale, former colleagues at Lucasfilm. But fandom responded very quickly and very quite effusively about him passing away. What a loss it is to Star Wars fandom, to Star Wars in general, but also somebody who'd archived so much.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of stuff that he'd done through, really starting with making Revenge of the Sith, through the blueprints, through the sketchbooks, through all the other stuff, and then obviously making the Star Wars Empire and Jedi, and beyond to like Alien and Planet of the Apes. He's got a book about producer Harry Kazanjian that should be out fairly soon. And his novel All Up, which we talked about with him last year. So we put out the audio that we did for Cannon Fodder last year for Empire 40. We put it out as an episode earlier in the week. Just terribly sad, isn't it?
It is terribly sad. But I suppose in some respects, because he did announce not so long ago, but it was stage 4 pancreatic cancer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And in some respects, you kind of think, well, it's probably glad that he didn't suffer super long with it. So there's that. But obviously, it's always sad, and it's sad to lose such a pivotal member of the Star Wars community, but such a nice family man as well.
Exactly. And he was only 58, which is terrible. You think of all the other stuff, it's nothing, is it? All the other stuff that he could have done. But terribly sad.
So our thoughts go out to the Rinsler family, and rest in peace, John.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, a Star Wars fan, Fantha Tracks fan.
So this week, Lucasfilm announced that we will be getting another LEGO special. It hits Disney Plus on the 1st of October. It's called LEGO Star Wars Terrifying Tales. And I think Disney and Lucasfilm, Disney loves its Halloween stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And clearly Lucasfilm do with Vader's Castle. We've got more Vader's Castle coming from IDW. And now we've got Terrifying Tales, which is another sort of Halloween-based Star Wars event, this time LEGO. Clearly, we're all looking forward to it, aren't we?
I think so, yeah. I suppose like last year we got the holiday special, which was like a month or so later.
That was great
but those LEGO specials are great because I think it's kind of needed that actually we can still have a bit of proper fun with Star Wars, which obviously with a lot of the series that are coming out now are very serious and and obviously we kind of deconstruct them and we talk about them in fandom and pick the bones apart very to the nth degree. So the fact that is that you can just have something fun and light and enjoyable, and I think it's quite nice to be able to tie it into some of these holidays around the year. So I'm looking forward to it. So it should be fun.
It should be fun, exactly, because like you say, all that other content that's come in. But the thing about Lego is that you look at it on the face of it and you go, oh, that's a kids thing, isn't it? It's for kids. But so many serious Lego collectors out there, people who really get deep and collect as much as they can and such. And the games, we're still waiting for Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. That's still sort of no idea when that's coming. So sooner the better. But now you get this. I think everyone can enjoy this.
Exactly, yeah. And it's it's a nice tongue in cheek, isn't it? And I think they get a good balance between not necessarily making fun at Star Wars, but making fun with Star Wars and making fun with Lego as well. And so they always do some really clever kind of like gags about things breaking up into bits and bricks and stuff. So it should be a fun little view when it comes out at the end of it. 1st of October.
1st of October. Yeah. So we'll be watching that. We'll review it on Fantha Tracks.
Absolutely, we'll do an in-depth analytical review of it,
brick by brick. Yeah.
Hi, Paul Blake here, Greedo from Star Wars A New Hope, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So more good news this week. Season 2 of The Bad Batch has been confirmed. Wasn't a huge surprise, was it? I think we all knew that there was going to be more seasons, but to actually have it nailed down for definite was good news.
Yeah, fantastic news. And I think it's quite nice that they didn't release it too early either. Because I think there is a feeling that potentially this could have been like a one and done season, actually, but for the way the series is running, you could think to yourself, actually, that maybe the story is what it is. And that's it. But the fact that we're getting season 2 means it's great, means the story's going to expand and evolve, and hopefully we're going to be kind of drawn more into like that Empire era. So because as we talk about it in a minute, right now you can really say with the destruction of Kamino at the end of the Clone Wars, that's it really. So it's going to be interesting to see how things develop, and even also how off the bat it is. Are we going to have a episode that's going to kind of jump forward in time, maybe 6 months or a year or something? So maybe there can be a bit of an evolution in the galaxy and with the Empire, or is it literally going to be pick up from where they last kind of like left it?
That's a great point because, well, two things. One thing, I think what they should have done was what they did with the season 1 end of Loki by saying Loki will return for season 2, which is like the old James Bond thing.
Exactly.
Which I think they should have done that with this. Because, announcing season 2 literally before the 2-part finale, I thought was a bit daft. I think they should have left it until the end and made a big deal of it then. Nevertheless, we know we're getting more, so that's great news. But I love that thought process. And like you say, we're going to talk about Warmantle and Return to Kamino in a bit, but the thought of, if they stick it 6 months forward, if they stick it 6 months further out, we collect the comics and we read the books and listen to the audio books and all the other stuff. So if they did that and we're thinking, well, great, there's a great big gap there for Marvel to do a 6-part series or somebody to come along and write a book set in that era. Because, like you say, it's not just the character. We all want to know about Omega. We want to know if she ever meets Fett. We want to know how Hunter resolves things, all the other questions. But also, like you say, the galaxy's changing. In Warmantle, we saw the Macquarie Troopers. And, there's all these sort of stylistic changes coming, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But really good news. I
think so. And I mean it's a good point actually. If there is a gap, then obviously it allows the ancillary materials to kind of step in and flesh out, and I think maybe a novel would be a really good way to kind of really start to kind of delve deep into what is going on in the galaxy, because we've had these kind of like shots and glances around different planets, but I think a book could do it, especially if it's an adult book, could do it in a way which could really kind of get in and make it really nitty and gritty. And
don't you think though, that you saying what you've just said, and one thing we've said about Bad Batch all the way through is that it's as much about the galaxy building as it is about the characters, which is great. This feels to me, if I had to throw this book out to anyone, I'd be going, hey James Luceno, what do you fancy doing for the next 3 months? Do you want to write a book about that time period? It feels set up for a guy like him, doesn't it?
Exactly, and the thing is, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, so they could have already had this conversation, and Luceno could be there tapping away on his typewriter or using his quill or whatever he uses.
His quill, obviously his quill. Slate and chalk. Add it to the list. I know you keep a running list.
Hello, I'm Ahmed Best, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So, Mark, you feeling flush?
I'm always feeling flush.
Even after Echo Live. Because Disney this week released the pricing tiers for Galactic Star Cruiser, which is hoping to set sail on spring of next year, 2022. And there's 3 different cabins, and the prices are as follows. So, for 2 guests per cabin is just over $1,200 per guest per night, so just under $5,000. 3 guests per cabin is $889, so it makes it just over $5,000. And then 4 guests per cabin, so that's basically 3 adults and 1 child, or maybe 3 normal-sized adults and a small adult, perhaps, is $750, and that comes in at $6,000. So what do you make of that?
Well, you referred to them as tiers. I think there were many tiers when these prices were announced. I mean, they are hefty. There's no doubt, and that is for standard cabin. There's Galaxy class suites and Grand Captain suites as well, which have more windows and more facilities and such. But nevertheless, for a standard cabin. If you can get 4 people in the room, $750 per person, so $1,500. So in pounds, what's that, about 1,200 quid?
Yeah.
For 2 nights? Okay, that's Hilton prices. That's Ritz-Carlton prices.
Yeah, exactly.
But nevertheless, that does make it slightly more achievable. And if you're going with friends, you probably go for a fortnight, take 2 days out and do this. If you organised it with friends, it is within the...
It's doable. I think it's doable. Like you said, if you're going with friends and you're all adults, but I think when people were starting to look at the prices and kind of like did a sharp inhales because they were looking at it as a family and thinking, Christ, that's a lot of money on top of like a normal Disney trip, which normally
it's expensive enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to cost you the best part of $5 or $6 grand easy. So.
I mean, it is because it's so unique, I suppose.
Yeah.
Especially for folks like us who are so into it. Exactly. You think, well, on one hand, you go, well, that's $2 or $3 grand I could spend on other things. I could have a whole holiday.
Yeah.
Go out for a fortnight in the Med for a fortnight for that.
Easy. Yeah.
Comfortably, for 2 days. But nevertheless, we talked about it last night at the barbecue. It's a proper immersive experience. You're literally there. As near as literally there as you can be. For a cruise that never leaves dock, I suppose it is quite expensive.
And I'll tell you what, that is going to be the thing is, I think for me personally, I really want to go, and saving up's not going to be like a big deal to do, but I just wonder if like when you get there, you've got to be in the right mindset to switch off and kind of go, don't worry about the money because A, you've already paid for it, so it's done. Yeah. But 2, just kind of like immerse yourself and be prepared to kind of, I guess maybe feel a little bit like a kid, and also maybe a bit like an idiot at points, because but you just got to kind of just get into it.
I mean, another thing is that they're allowing people at Galactic Star Cruiser to dress up. To be in costume. Yeah. So you could go as whoever you wanted to go as.
Exactly.
I could go, I'd go and get, I used to do fanfic, so I'd get a costume made up that looked like a fanfic character. I'd really go for it. So I'd be going in there as Jan Lamona, and that would be me.
Exactly.
That's who I'd be.
That's the way, I think that's the way to do it. If you do it as like, Mark from Stevenage, and and you're just kind of going in your Star Wars t-shirt and your shorts and that, it's probably you're going to have a good time, but I think you want to go all in. It's like,
you'll be a bit inhibited.
Exactly, I think so. But I think it's for me also. I want to kind of see how it all pans out. I think I don't, as much as it's always exciting to be the first to go. Yeah. I think I probably want to see how people's reactions are.
Iron the creases out as well, because they always improve these things, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this is it. I mean, we saw that even with Galaxy's Edge over the first kind of like 6 months or so. Yeah. They ironed that out. So
they've announced an itinerary. Yeah. Just to go through this briefly, it's day 1, day 2, and day 3. So you are sort of there partially over 3 days.
Yeah.
So for an example, day 1, 1 o'clock, you get there at the terminal. You take the launch pod to the Star Cruiser. You go through an orientation. There's some refreshments. I'm assuming these are all in with the price. Bloody hope so. Sarlacc lessons.
Sabacc.
Did I say Sarlacc?
You did say. Yeah.
Thank you. Sabacc lessons. Captain's reception, which would be fun. Live music and dinner.
Yeah.
Outer rim regalia. I suppose you're dressing up in your fancy gear. Then. This is the bit that interests me. Unexpected story moment. So it says you could prove your mettle by joining an elite smuggling ring. That's what I'd want to do. Hide a stowaway to help the resistance. Bridge training. And then the next day is absolutely packed. 7 a.m. They want you up nice and early. So get to bed early. Enjoy the room. Because obviously you're paying for the room, so you really want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Breakfast, and then transport shuttle to Batuu. You get to do Rise of the Resistance. Another story moment. Do Smuggler's Run. These are going to be great chances for you to do all these things without the encumbrance of huge queues and such. Food at Docking Bay 7, so this is all involved. Transport back to the shuttle, lightsaber training, droid racing. I mean, I'm reading from the list, and there's all sorts of stuff, but they are throwing in these unexpected stories.
Exactly, yeah. And to me, actually, I think the thing that is going to be really, really fantastic is they're clearly, obviously, going to tie in, going to Batuu. So that's your first destination, or that's your destination for the cruise, isn't it? And then you get embroiled and all that nonsense that happens there. So I think that's a really smart and clever way to do it, because actually I think that, like you said, by having to take the sting out of like worrying about getting early passes and fast passes and queues and stuff like that, you just do Batuu then and there, and then as part of your Galaxy adventure,
that's it.
And then you go back onto the ship.
Yeah. And also, I suppose, you make a great point there, because I suppose if you're going in and doing this, you're guaranteed to do all those rides at Galaxy's Edge.
Exactly.
You're getting the full experience as part of a tour thing, you know.
Yeah.
Presumably, if you're allowed to dress up in Galactic Star Cruiser, you're going on these missions. If you're part of the tour group, you can keep your gear on when you're in the park, which I know they don't normally allow. I'll be interested to know what the story is on that.
Is that. Yeah.
So, and then you're back on the ship. So that means, really, to a degree, you know, it frees you up for the rest of your holiday. You're thinking, we've done Galaxy's Edge, we're never going to do Galaxy's Edge better than that.
Exactly, because it's, I mean, in theory, so you've got from, let's say you get the last shuttle to Batuu, so like at 8:25, and then at 8:45 you're doing the Rise of Resistance, and then you're back on the ship at 11:15.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple of hours in Galaxy's Edge to wander around and do that. And I obviously I know some people go there and they spend the whole day there and they take it all in. But then actually you'll be able to get enough of a sense, and then actually there might be some people who be like, actually that's it, I've done Galaxy's Edge, I don't need to.
Yeah.
And then the others, you still got the rest of your holiday, you can go back after the rest of the events have unfolded.
Because like you say, you know you've done Rise of Resistance, you know you've done Smugglers.
Yeah, so you can just worry about going to Dok-Ondar and spunking a ton of cash on that. But okay, so it's, you know, this is all coming out around spring of 2022.
Yeah.
So do we think this is now tied into Celebration as well?
Well, that's a great point, because it's going to be in both parts.
Yeah.
Where are we? Yeah, that's May, isn't it? Celebration. So that's an interesting thought. That's still spring, isn't it, technically?
Yeah. So even if it's just in terms of Celebration, perhaps a big promotional push, like they did at last Celebration with Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's like that's the stage in which you push the product outside of just a real kind of like niche fandom channels to a much wider audience. So I wouldn't be surprised if there at least be a Star Cruiser panel Celebration.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
So we didn't have a regular episode of Making Tracks last week because somebody was on holiday. So we had the Gwendolyn Yeo roundtable, Bad Batch roundtable, and of course the Jonathan Rinsler episode that we did for Canon Fodder at Empire 40 last week. So we did have 2 episodes of Making Tracks last week, but one thing we didn't do was talk about last week's 14th episode, season 1 of the Bad Batch, War Mantle. So I think we should resolve that right now. Straight off the bat, what did you make of that episode?
Cracking episode, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Cracking episode. And actually, whilst I was away on holiday, and you can tell I stayed in the UK, I watched Rogue One. And of course, in Rogue One, when Jyn and Cassian are going through all the list of names trying to find the Death Star plans, what comes up? War Mantle. And I was like, so, you know, let's see how
it's all connected.
It's all connected. It's almost like it's a franchise. So,
like they meant it.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was a really nice, strong episode. I mean, you had to start with kind of Gregor running through the woods, and, it's great to see some kind of resolution to his story to a degree, because the last time we saw him, he blew himself up on that, was it season 5 of the Clone Wars?
I think it was, wasn't it? Way back,
with Omega Gascon and the droid squad. So he's kind of redeemed himself a little bit after that arc. But good episode. Obviously we start to see the evolution and the development of the new Stormtrooper, moving away from the Clone Trooper into the TK Stormtroopers.
Yeah, I think this episode, as much as any, really early on you got that whole, the chain code things came in, travel was restricted, you were switching from Republic to Imperial credits, so it was very obvious. Rampart was on that hologram telling everybody what to do, and so that was very clear. But I think this is the most clear since then, sort of indication or way of showing that, the Republic really has gone. We've got a few months on from the end of Revenge of the Sith now, I would imagine. So now, the trooper armour's changing, TKs are coming in, text codes, clone codes don't work anymore.
Yeah, they start to trigger alarms and that. And that was the one thing that I found interesting on the second watch was, you kind of start to think that actually, to a degree, a lot of Tech's information and kind of knowledge that he has is now getting outdated.
Yeah, and that's going to bug him, isn't it? Because he's the brains of the outfit, isn't he? In that sense, he's the guy that they can rely on to fix things. And...
He needs the intel.
Yeah.
So therefore, he's going to need to at some point kind of find a way to refresh and get all the extra kind of intel on that. So
it feels like there's a storyline there, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because I mean, obviously he's brilliant and he's clever with technology as well. But if he doesn't have the kind of the intelligence and all that kind of stuff behind him, then like, is he going to be frustrated? Is he going to maybe feel slightly left out or pushed
redundant,
out? Yeah. Exactly, redundant. So yeah. But it was a good start to the episode, and I think also it was good to see that when they kind of get to a point when they come across the base, like Hunter turns around and says, right, Wrecker, you've got to take Omega back.
Yeah.
And he kind of realises that this is no place, because they don't know what they're going into, let alone to drag her along.
And that was a good one as well, because Omega obviously wants to be involved. She has value within the group increasingly.
Yeah.
But I think also, sending Wrecker back made all the sense, because it was a stealth mission. They were scoping it out as much as anything, weren't they?
He's not quite.
Exactly. Hunter, Tech and Echo. Echo was not going, because it was all tied in with Rex and their connection and such. But Tech and Hunter would definitely, Hunter being the tracker who figures out which way it is and all that sort of stuff. But Wrecker being the big club that he can be.
Yeah.
You want him in a firefight.
Yeah.
He would have been great in the scenario that they fell into, but in that moment there was no question. He didn't even question it. Yeah, no. Back to the ship. You know, he knows his place in that sense. But Omega, she wanted to get involved, but like you said earlier when we were talking about it, there's a time and a place for her participation, and that wasn't it, was it?
Exactly. And I think what's been good about this series, where I think there's a risk whereby you could have Omega be too pushy, and then obviously give Wrecker the slip, and then goes off and then gets herself in trouble, which again is just going to kind of bog down the episode. Or you have the other thing where she just kind of complains and makes a big kind of fuss about it, but actually she's pretty good.
Yeah.
She's pretty well behaved. Like she puts up a bit of a fuss, because I think we would all expect a kid to not want to have to go back to the ship, but it's not to the detriment of the episode and the flow and that. But I think this is probably the first episode of the series where there's been a real nice kind of character moment with Echo, because again Echo kind of recalls back to the fact that the Bad Batch came and rescued him, and now we've got to go and rescue Gregor. So it's like he feels like slightly obligated to go push on. Which we haven't really had many moments in the season with Echo like that. He's always been the one kind of left to one side, because he's not really part of the batch per se.
It's a funny dynamic with him, because he's got all the experience, and we've seen Echo for a long time do things, and Tech as well. You'd say Echo and Tech are the two, but I think Tech has really come into his own the last few episodes. Piloting the ship in this episode later on, which was fantastic, and Omega as well. And just certain little things, but. Totally take your point on Tech. He needs some sort of hookup to stay on top of the Imperial Network side of things. But Omega as well. She's Omega. I think she's so well written as a character, as a child character.
Yeah.
There's that one episode when she went back to Sid and she was like, "It's not fair."
Yeah.
And she had a bit of a strop. That's the closest we've seen her to having a strop.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this one she kind of shoulders dropped a bit, but she got it. And then, of course, back on the ship, her and Wrecker playing the tic-tac-toe, whatever they were playing.
Yeah.
Brilliant. When they get into the Imperial facility then, which was a brilliant reveal, we said it's a bit like when you see Edu in Rogue One. It's got that sort of reveal. Getting into the base and seeing those Macquarie troopers, seeing the Republic Commando type armour, that was a bit special, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was kind of giving you chills, and also it's the whole lodgings, like strip lighting down the hallways, and let's be fair, let's take a moment to kind of recognise Kevin Kiner's amazing score for this episode, because really this was a proper homage to A New Hope, Death Star, escape stuff. It was
like you said with the kettle drums and
the kettle drums, and and it was really subtly done, and I mean obviously it felt like he's lifted parts from John Williams' score, but then he's kind of interwoven his own bits, and it flowed really nicely and stuff. So, but it's quite nice to see the Republic Commandos kind of leading the TK Stormtroopers and that, and actually seeing again that they don't hesitate in firing and stuff, So
and of course the Batch is still firing.
They're still stunning.
Yeah, and you made a great observation before we started recording about how everyone's still using the blue lasers. And you're thinking, well, when are they going to change to the red and the green that we're more familiar with later on?
Exactly.
That's going to be another little nudge and adjustment.
Exactly, that could be something we see in season 2. That could just be like another evolution. But I suppose also I was thinking about this, bearing in mind that by the time we have Star Wars Rebels, we still don't have the true like a New Hope TK Stormtrooper.
Yeah.
So there's still quite a long length of time, but they need to kind of like stretch that evolution out.
Exactly, but don't you think that's good? Because when we only had the OT, you thought Stormtroopers are Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And then and all Imperial troops are Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And then you see Snowtroopers in Empire.
Yeah.
And then you see Biker Scouts in Jedi.
Yeah.
And TIE Fighter pilots and ATST drivers and yada yada.
Yeah.
And so it was a very slow evolution of like, oh, and now they've got this and now they've got that.
Yeah.
And you realise that they were there, a lot of those troops were there. There were Snowtroopers around at the time of Star Wars. There were Biker Scouts around at the time of Star Wars.
You just
hadn't seen them. You know, but as a kid you're thinking, oh, this is new.
Yeah.
It's not new, you're just seeing it for the first time. So you get your head around that sort of thing. But there is and has always been, I'll make a Star Trek analogy, there was always the uniform changes in Trek, and there was always that little, like in Generations when you got one guy wearing black and red and the other guy's wearing red and black, you know, there's that changeover sort of thing. You realise now with Star Wars it's exactly the same, and that when we see the OT and you've got your classic Stormtrooper and, you know, Death Troopers and even Vader's armour changes.
Yeah.
So everyone's changing it up all the time.
Exactly. Well, that's just, I guess, part of the DNA of the Empire, the Empire War Machine, really, if you think about it. That's what they're kind of there to do, is kind of develop and try and design what they consider the best ultimate fighting kind of like machines and armour and stuff. But, I mean, you hear kind of Gregor kind of really kind of clearly spell it out that you know, the clone troopers are being phased out and they're being replaced with quantity rather than quality. So and you kind of see that because at that point we're kind of suddenly those stormtroopers just aren't on point when it comes to, like, you know, one gets stunned as we're running past in the corridor on the back and that. It's a funny moment and stuff, but it all kind of shows that actually the training's been rushed. I mean, because we're still in the first year of the Empire, really easy,
comfortably.
So therefore, all that conscription, and you know, they've probably just had basic training. And that basic training is not accelerated in the same way the clone troopers were. So it's going to be a big difference, which gives the Bad Batch that upper hand, absolutely. Which basically, because they now really are going to always be kind of like on the underdogs and fighting, you know, for the numbers, so that they're going to need the better prowess to do that.
And it's also, I think, it's another parallel with, for example, the sequel trilogy when you get your First Order troopers, and they made it very clear that Stormtroopers were Stormtroopers, and Kenobi gives them all the props. You know, Stormtroopers are, you know, very precise and and they do a great job. You go from your clone trooper, as you just said, elite training, coded, everything. You know, they are the peak, and then it's massive numbers, and then you get to the First Order, and these troops they're physically bigger, they're definitely better trained, and then there's special ops versions as well. So, you know, you kind of, they've gone back to a process. It's almost like Palpatine went, never quite worked with Stormtroopers, but it definitely worked with clone troopers. So let's train these guys to that level. You're kind of starting to see the...
because with the First Order, they're taken as kids, so they're basically indoctrinated and forced, you know, to be trained. So therefore,
in the same way as the clones,
pretty much. So therefore, you can see that somebody's kind of going, actually, let's, you know, it's kind of a merging of the two, and that should make the ideal trooper. It doesn't, because they still lose. But
well, exactly. But now we've got Gregor in the mix now, so we've seen Rex, and we see Rex in this episode briefly. He's obviously on another mission, so he's kind of rushed. Sends them out to Darrow. They get into the facility. They find Gregor. There's some great action inside, but ultimately they make a first pass to escape. And half of them get on the ship, but Gregor and Hunter are stuck behind. And then Tech gets control. But there's this amazing sequence. I mean, visually, you know, it was Rogue One level space. Well, it was in atmosphere, but sort of that quality of that fight sequence, the way it was shot and everything was just stunning, wasn't it?
It was great, and you know, fair play, because it was Amiga behind the sticks. So
obviously, learned from Hera and Tech. Obviously.
And that's it. And I suppose really that's, you know, showing that, you know, she's paying off as a character. So that's great. And
even twirling the screwdriver when she's working on the gonky.
Exactly.
So with the knife.
She's kind of picking up kind of like their mannerisms and you know, affectations, which is kind of quite cool and nice.
So of course we end that episode with Hunter left on Darrow. Great cliffhanger.
Great cliffhanger.
Great
yeah.
cliffhanger.
Hi, this is John Morton from The Empire Strikes Back, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
It kind of then raises a question that we asked ourselves a few episodes ago about what happens when Hunter is removed from the batch, and we kind of see kind of what happens, because actually it you know, in Return to Kamino, or the finale, part 1, as they've listed it as on Disney Plus, we do actually see kind of Tech step up to be almost like the you know, the second in command, or
very much,
you know, the leader.
Which you would imagine if Tech wasn't around, that would have been Crosshair doing that.
Yeah,
you know, totally would have been Crosshair,
yeah,
and you wonder what the play out would have been. But of course, we get to Crosshair later in the episode. But yeah, that's a good point in that. Yeah, Tech definitely leads that. Echo's not a leader in that sense, is he? Echo's a, you know, he's more.
He is a grunt. Yeah,
he's a beta guy. He's not an alpha guy, sort of thing. And Wrecker's never going to be leading the batch.
No.
But Omega, again, you know, her... I mean, she's got a conscience, she's a kid, she's got a different way of thinking, but she's got a really good way of persuading people in the right way, not in a devious way, like some characters do, but just in a very honest way of making it seem like, well, how can we not do this?
Exactly, yeah. I think it's just down to, because she doesn't understand, or she's not aware of the risks potentially.
Yeah.
So therefore, she just sees it very kind of black and white in that respect. So, but then actually at the same time, you know, they return to Kamino, and I think the one thing I feel like they may have missed an opportunity to kind of recall that conversation that she had with Hunter, where he kind of says, I will never take you back to Kamino. And even though he's not there, so it wouldn't be by his direct actions, the fact that they're having to go back, he kind of felt like they could have had like a beat where maybe she felt some kind of hesitation or reticence behind it. But I suppose on the flip side, the fact that she just goes straight in just shows how kind of like resilient she is, and how kind of brave also.
I mean, even since they had that little conversation, which didn't seem that many episodes ago, when he said, I promise you'll never have to go there again. And any show, I mean, in life, I hate it when people promise things.
Yeah.
Because too many random variables come in and make that promise a lie. And it was almost like with Omega, when she had that moment with Hunter, it was a relief in the moment. Yeah. But like you say, as soon as they realise, okay, he's not on Darrow anymore, Crosshairs, they kind of figure out, they know that Crosshairs behind him activating the beacon and such. But, you know, we've got to go back to Kamino. And as you say, it's forgotten instantly. It's like, well, this is what we've got to do. Because she's the first one to go, well, we've got to go back, haven't we? But how can we not go back, you know?
And actually, the fact is, she kind of, she takes the lead, you know, because she's actually got the home ground advantage. Right? She knows all the, you know, the secret passages and stuff like that. And
well, there you go, that sequence there. I mean, you know, you see Topeka City in the distance with the thunder and the rain and everything else going off, and obviously all the Imperial activity. And then that platform comes out, that whole sequence with the platform and the underground tubes. That was gorgeous to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole of Kamino in this series has looked great, because they've really stepped up the atmospherics, even down to, from what you really see on Attack of the Clones, the films, where it just kind of feels like it's just wet and it's just water.
Yeah.
This, you know, there's real kind of like volume to those clouds, and, you know, it's thunder and lightning, so it kind of again heightens the expectations and the drama of that planet.
Now you've got to the point where visually an animated show like Bad Batch can do Kamino and the water and the rain and everything to that level, you know, to look that good.
It looks stunning. It looks stunning. And I mean, the whole of Topeka City, isn't it? Bad just looks great anyway. I mean, because it's bright and it's white and it's sterile, but because they've always, even back to Attack of the Clones, they have this nice kind of glow, and like the light wraps around people.
It does, it
kind of feels a bit more kind of heavenly, you know.
Yeah. So, like the aliens coming out the ship in Close Encounters.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely. And actually, I suppose in some respects, even the Kaminoans, by their kind of, you know, their grace, and they've got an ethereal quality in how they kind of talk and stuff as well. So,
and there was a really, I thought, quite a sad moment in this, because in War Mantle, you realise that the Prime Minister is pretty much he's done, and Nala Se gets taken to join the Imperial Science. You've got to assume logically she probably gets shipped off to Exegol or some part of the galaxy like that, to be working on the Emperor's plans, you know, cloning, and that's obviously a focus for him. The rest of the Kaminoans, you're learning Return to Kamino.
Yeah.
Those that didn't comply were executed. All the troopers, all the clones are taken off planet to whatever fate they get taken to. My head tells me they're probably used as slave labour.
Probably.
Because the Wookiees get enslaved. There's other races around the galaxy that end up in a similar situation. So why wouldn't they just either force the clones or do an Order 66 style thing on them and they just become like Lobot, you know?
Yeah, there's that. I mean, I suppose it all depends, because we only really see a few of the key cloners, shall we say, you know, the Kaminoans.
Yeah.
And so the question is that like indicative of the entire race? Are they all scientists? Because if that's the case, then put them to work developing, I don't know, new forms of Bacta or whatever. You know, there's loads of different opportunities they could be used. But with the end of War Mantle, and I mean, I feel like the Prime Minister kind of, I think he comes to the realisation about the writings on the wall a little bit too late. I think, you know, I think he was.
Oh, it's Mufasa when he realises Scar screwed him over.
Yeah, totally. It's just like he just kind of just realises that it's a little bit too late, and you know, but interesting because like, you know, the doors close and you don't hear a blaster being fired, which is what I was expecting.
Me too.
And so, like, you know, we still assume that he's dead, but I mean, I suppose it leaves a door open to something else.
It's that we talked about it before. It's that Revenge of the Sith moment with Anakin and the kids. You don't see Anakin cut the kids down. You know he's killed younglings, but there's dead kids all over the temple. Yeah. So you know you can assume that he was involved in that, but you don't actually see him take out those kids. So I'm sure at some point, if they want to, they can go back and go, we never showed it. You only assumed as a viewer that he killed them. But, you know.
And I think probably more so with a Prime Minister than with Nala Se.
Yeah.
I think he's probably more up for trying to strike a deal and bargain. So if that means that he has to hand over key personnel who maybe aren't on Poker City at the time or technology or something like that, he'll do that to save his own arse.
To sell people out. Yeah.
So there's potential for that, which means that potentially he could come back as a bit of a bad guy character in season 2. So.
Absolutely. We're on Kamino. Yeah. It's a familiar location. Yeah. If you ever played Battlefront 2 back in the day.
Yeah, gave me some like real kind of like memories of playing that.
Big time. And especially outside when we were down the sort of the runways outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Was taking out super battle droids on those things.
Exactly. Yeah. And but I mean, there's that you know when they go into Nala Se's secret laboratory and there's that kind of that moment where kind of like Omega's explaining to the guys, well, this is where we all were.
That was the key scene, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the big takeaway from that one. It's like, and it was interesting because I think I didn't necessarily get a sense of awe from the guys, but just that kind of slight sense of realisation of like, you know, that actually they are all together and stuff.
And the Omega watched them be developed. The Omega's older than them.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Very subtly stated though.
Yeah, she just says that, and so you can.
I was there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that in itself, I was still trying to figure like, does that math even work? Because like, you know, she was 10, 12.
I think they. Where are we? We're only months after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And that's 3 years after Attack of the Clones. And most of the clones in Attack of the Clones were, you saw the youngsters and the teenagers, but there were troops, you see them come out.
Yeah.
So
it must be at least, well, I mean, it's 10 years between Phantom and Attack of the Clones, so I guess...
We're only 13 years after Phantom Menace, really, at this point, aren't we?
So it's conceivable. Yeah. So it only takes, probably at the most, 10 years for them to get to adulthood. Because, I mean, I guess they've never really stated actually how long or specific that growth acceleration is. It just is.
And Omega, you imagine if there's Omega and Bob was Alpha, which we know, and he was Django stated it, you know, I want a kid to grow up at a regular speed and be, you know, and Omega's a similar scenario. Yeah. Then it probably does. You know, or they could easily contrive that the two numbers work. So to think that all of a sudden you think, well, she's the kid sister.
Yeah.
And then and she must have been cloned later after them.
Exactly.
And now you're thinking, well, actually no, that ties her even closer into Boba Fett because she is clearly being just regular growth speed.
Exactly. Yeah. She's probably only a couple of years younger.
And we still think, you know, maybe we're assuming she's cloned. Yeah. Maybe there is a mother.
Yeah.
You know, there's still that thought process that, you know, they've not
And I think they've done that intentionally. They've left it vague because then that will just open up potential writing opportunities later on.
Yeah, massively.
So, which is pretty clever, and even down to actually not specifically nailing down the gestation period and the growth speed of these clones. It makes it a little bit fluid, and means that we can't then turn around and say actually we call bullshit on that, because actually that's not what was said before.
Rampart's been present through the whole of season 1.
Yes.
This episode he proper steps forward as the villain, doesn't he?
Yeah, we see him kind of basically being told, given the orders, wipe him out. Just get what you need out of there, and then just level the city.
Yeah, and we get the great Tarkin moment. Yeah, you may fire when ready.
You may fire when ready.
Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, I think even I think we said this. I mean, you said this fairly early on. It wouldn't be surprised if it goes the same way as Geonosis, and to a degree, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to level the city and everybody on it. But before that,
but to see it, to see it was something else.
To see that, but also there was. I really liked, and it kind of reminded me of, I think, some of the Roger Moore era James Bond films, where you kind of, once everybody's been killed and kind of escaped from the villain's kind of labs.
They blow the base up.
You blow the base up, but you see all the empty environments, and I think it was quite poignant, the fact that you saw the different areas of the clones, because actually in some respects, it's not like we've only just seen this in Attack of the Clones, and in this series we've seen it quite a lot in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of history actually that's happened on these kind of that planet. So it's quite nice that they showed that, and I wondered actually to myself as if Filoni was actually directing that this episode, whether or not maybe he may have made linger on that a little bit longer, make it a bit more poignant. But I think it worked in the way they did it. It was quite nice because it showed us how empty it was.
Oh yeah, and like I say, we're so used to it, especially from Clones, seeing it so busy and bustling, but again through the timeline and such. And it is a prequel era world.
Yeah.
But that still means it's been around for nearly 20 years.
Exactly.
Attack of the Clones never gets enough love. I love the film, but it never gets enough love. But it's certainly got lots of bucket nods in this one, especially from Kyno and his sons working on
the track. Yeah, exactly. But the big the big thing with this one is Crosshair, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, bringing him back into it was a great move, especially when it happened. In this one, especially when there's that great little sequence where they say to Omega, if we give you the signal, you need to go.
Yeah.
She's never going to do that.
Yeah.
And so the whole sequence when they're back in that training room where we saw them in the first 2 episodes, the two-header, that was a fantastic sequence. Back with Crosshair.
Yeah.
Working together. The sequence where he's not turned back to the good side, inverted commas, waggling my fingers, back to the good side yet. He just wants the clear room to say, do the Vader a Bespin thing to Luke, you need a purpose. You've got no purpose at the moment. Come and do this because this gives you purpose.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing, because it's I think you could very easily just think, well, it was the inhibitor chip, and as we find out that the inhibitor chip was removed at some point.
So he says.
But I called that on an earlier episode.
You did.
That he's probably doing that not because of a chip, but because that's his philosophy.
Yeah.
And in some respects, you kind of think, well, that would make sense, because really, in some respects, these clones have only been bred for one thing.
Yeah.
So really, it doesn't necessarily matter who's in charge at the top.
Yeah.
It's, for them, they're following orders.
And they need a purpose, don't they?
Yeah.
And with the Empire, he has a purpose.
Exactly.
But I don't think yet he realises. I mean, you hear the other troopers. The one trooper says to Rampart, "I don't trust him."
Yeah.
There's a lot of mistrust and distrust from his colleagues, and waggling my fingers again. So I don't think he's quite realised he's in a real sticky spot.
Exactly.
But I don't think he thinks he can go back to the batch at this point.
No, precisely. He hasn't. I don't think really you could call this a redemption of Crosshair. The question is, assuming they all of them get out alive at the end of the second episode, it's whether or not he comes back into the fold, or actually he still sees them as betraying him. That's what it is. He
definitely felt like they'd let him down, didn't he?
Exactly, and
not the other way around.
And maybe that's just what it is. If they just either, I think it all depends whether or not he can go back to the Empire, whether or
Yeah.
not he can kind of just walk back in. Because like you said, I don't think the Empire being what it is, he's going to have the same rights and privileges and opportunity as a conscripted stormtrooper.
Don't you think, though, that in this era now, and this is the thought that's literally occurring to me as it's going out my mouth, that once Order 66 happens, that's one thing. The Jedi are taken out for the most part. The what few survive really go underground as much. Dagobah is literally on as far out as he can pretty much go.
Yeah.
And Yoda, the top guy, goes there, and everybody else either hides in plain sight or really goes to ground. It's almost as dangerous. It's building it as a story that it's almost as dangerous to be a clone as it is to be a Jedi.
I think so. Yeah. And that might be something interesting to actually see what they do with those clones. Do they actually just kind of go, you know what, we're going to retire them?
Like they switch all the droids off.
Yeah, exactly. And basically it's just going to be like some kind of mass execution, you know. Because that's the thing. Yeah, so we saw it with Hauser on Ryloth that actually even clones that we assume heard Order 66 still are rebelling.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's what's accelerated the War Mantle project, and also I think probably they're just going to be like, you know what, we can't necessarily trust them to follow those kind of orders, so let's just get rid, just do a clean sweep, replace them with all the conscripts and move on.
Yeah.
So potentially we could see an episode maybe in season 2 where actually they stumble across some mass burial grave site or something for clones, which would be grim as anything.
Oh, it would be, but not unexpected.
So yeah. So what are you expecting from season 2?
Season 2, well, I mean, we've got one more episode of season 1, so I'm very curious to see how that plays out, because at the end of this episode, Tipoca City is going down. You kind of got to assume that the escape tunnel back to the Havoc Marauder is probably broken.
Possibly.
Unless they're very quick and can get to it, because obviously nobody else knew about it. It was very much... I think that was Nihilus' secret escape tunnel, wasn't it?
So I think they're going... I mean, I think they're going to get out. I think it's going to be tight, but I think they're probably going to be able to get out. It's maybe the question is whether or not Crosshair has to, you know, he sacrifices himself to save the others, therefore doing a typical like redemption thing, or whether or not they just take him with him, and then maybe he tries to bring him in.
Would it surprise you then? I mean, you kind of put Crosshair to one side because he's left the batch and Omega's kind of took his place. Would it surprise you if any of the batch didn't make it in the final episode?
I think I would actually. Yeah, I think for season 1. For this kind of show, I think I would be surprised. I don't really think it's kind of got the balls to do that. I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you?
I'm in two minds. One of my thoughts was if Hunter's captured, it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't see it on screen. We don't know it's happened, but I'm thinking best of both worlds. Captain Picard gets turned to the Borg. It wouldn't surprise me if Hunter was chipped and something happened with him, and that him and Crosshair team up, and that's your big bads for season 2. I don't know. That's just one thought. I definitely think that now you've very much got two very clear there's a demarcation line between enlisted soldiers from around the galaxy who just want to get off their dead-end boring worlds and see some of the galaxy and live a bit of life, and your clone troopers, your clone trooper army. So I can see some sort of conflict happening there, because okay, when did the Clone Wars actually end? We thought that the Galactic Civil War ended at Endor, and we learned a long time after that it actually ended a year later at Jakku. So you know, we think the Clone Wars ended when Order 66, turning off the battle droids, end of Battle of Coruscant, and that's the end of the Clone Wars. And the Empire's in situ, and that's it. But maybe now you've got this other in civil war between still millions of clone troopers, but obviously far more enlisted stormtroopers coming in, or TKs or whatever coming in. There could be another war. So you know, the war of the Separatists versus the Republic was done. Because the Empire's won that, because Palpatine's played his part. But the actual literally clones in wars, Clone Wars, that aspect could continue further into season 2.
And that's, you know, when I always thought of the Clone Wars, that's what I thought, because that, and not necessarily because of what just Obi-Wan says in the Hut in A New Hope, but from reading like Dark Force Rising, and about Timothy's Artbook, where the Empire is using clones.
Yeah.
And I assumed there was some kind of clone rebellion or something like that. So there could be that. Or is just the end of the Clone Wars going to just basically be when the last clone dies, or at least the Empire thinks they killed the last clone,
and the Palpatine has complete control over the cloning process.
Exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But So do you think they're all going to make it out?
I do, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. The only character I think, weirdly, is we know Greg is going to get through it because we see him later on. But I think the only character that is safe, because they'd be crazy to not investigate further, is Omega.
Yeah.
If any of the others went out, I'd be sad as anything, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're going to lose one, maybe Echo.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the obvious one.
Yeah.
I don't think they would lose Wrecker, because he does bring out a little bit more of a levity.
He does, yeah.
And Hunter, I just think that he is the one who has a relationship really with Omega, and I think in some respects they're both kind of learning together.
But again, I suppose that then again, you say that, and that's a really good point. It depends on what they want to do with Omega as a character going forward. Because if they want, if you think if Qui-Gon was still around, Anakin wouldn't have turned out the way he did.
Yeah.
Maybe if Hunter's not around, Omega won't turn out the way she should.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a play that they want to do there.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's lots of different ways they could spin it. So, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've got the final episode of season 1 next week. We'll be talking about that on episode 103.
Yeah.
Which will be a regular episode.
Regular studio episode.
2 hours apart.
Yeah.
For each other. and then we've got the long wait to season 2. So War Mantle and Return to Camino, 4 out of 5s.
Absolutely spot on episodes, I reckon. Definitely, probably, it looks like it's going to be a real strong end to this first season of Bad Batch. I think that's going to be all we've got for this week. But of course, as always, if you want to send us a question, we love actually receiving those. But of course, you're going to need to know how to do it. But the big problem is the fact that Mark doesn't have his notes on where you need to send them.
I don't.
So he's going to wing it. So let's see how he does.
Oh, blimey. Okay. So if you want to contact the site, you want to contact the podcast, email radio@phantomtracks.com, or check out the free Phantom Tracks app, available through the App Store or on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send us listeners' questions. We love listeners' questions, so email at radio@phantomtracks.com, which I've already said, which proves this is live because I can't remember what I'm supposed to say next. Yep. You can get us. You can find us on Amazon and Audible and SoundCloud and all the other download places and stuff you can listen to your podcast. I'm completely making this up off the top of my head. And what else do we need to say?
Good morning, Tatooine.
Yes, Good Morning Tatooine. It's every week or every Sunday, 9 o'clock UK time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's not on this week because we've done a server change, so go and check that out. It's back on next week with Brian hosting. Not sure who the co-host is going to be. Go to phantomtracks.com, you'll find out all the information that you need there. And next time I'm going to tattoo this on my arm so I can read it off my arm, because I can't remember what I'm supposed to say.
Pretty good though.
Is that right?
That's more than I could remember.
Okay, that's
Didn't I write a lot of that?
I think you probably did. Yeah. In fact, you did, because my version was rubbish. Yours was way better than mine.
Cool.
So, yes.
Well, in that case, well done, dude. Nice to see you.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
18 months. Good.
We'll have to do this more
How
often.
We've grown.
Oh, boy. Outwards.
Outwards,
yeah. Cool. Brilliant. Well, Marcus, you stay safe.
I will.
Take care. And of course, everybody else who's listening, thank you for listening. And stay safe. Wear a mask. Get a vaccine. And of course, as always, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.
Whoosh!